hello there, friends and lovers. And we got to talk. No, wait, I mean, this is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir and you. And we are, of course, glad you are here.
Yes.
And yeah, we got to talk. Today is January 18th, 2026, the 18th day of this, your best year yet. Well, at least compared to last year. No, just kidding. It's going to be a great year.
Yeah, and it's your year. Remember that.
It is all about you.
You get to curate your year, your months, your weeks, your days.
Yes, in ways that are obvious, but also in a few ways that maybe aren't. Sunday, January 18th is the 18th day of the year. Christmas is in 341 days. Halloween in 286. Valentine's Day in 27. And...
Oh, wait. Valentine's is second Halloween, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Yep, that's right. Always say yes. And last but not least, in fact, one of the themes for the day, there are 62 days in the Northern Hemisphere until spring, or 62 days until autumn if you are down under that equator. The Earth is such a strange globe. But we have 62 days left, and we are broadcasting live to you from Motown. So we got snow out there. We are ready. Winter, it's funny to listen to Yaron Brook and his attitude about winter. I totally get it. But hey, we've got 62 days of snowball fights, or just building snowmen, sledding, and ice skating and skiing and snowboarding, but also, sweaters and scarves and mittens and cozy blankets and hot chocolate, hot cocoa, or
hot tea is
hot
nice.
cider, spiced a bit maybe, curling up with a book.
Yeah, good
fresh
stuff.
Baked bread, crock pots, slow roasts, things you could do any time of the year, but you're going to do in the winter time.
It's true.
No mowing the lawn.
No mowing, no bugs.
No mosquitoes.
Yes.
Like zero, absolutely no bugs.
Yeah, if you don't have a bad knee, you can go sledding.
Now, I know some of you are out there saying, well, yeah, man, but the world's on fire. And I don't know, kind of, in parts. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. In fact, on this date, we got to talk about on this date, this fine January 18th, on this date, back in 1968. Do you remember 1968? Do you remember the late 60s, those hippy-dippy days?
I don't. I just have read about them.
When you think like the late 60s, wasn't that when they had that really terrible, really campy Batman series?
Sure.
Back in 1968, during Batman days, when Eartha Kitt played Catwoman.
Which was great.
Which was amazing.
Which was better than, Julie Newmar, I think it was?
Julie Newmar was okay.
She had her issues.
But, the whole series had issues, as you and Matthew were talking about online. It wasn't until they actually got the comic books are serious. It wasn't until on television they got serious with the animated series.
Yes, animated series.
That Batman got good. And then they cast Michael Keaton as Batman, and you're like, what are you talking about? He's a comedian. That's going to be terrible. And it turns out it was actually really good. So Batman turns around. But back in 68, when Eartha Kitt was playing Catwoman on Batman, she went to the White House. She was already a celebrated singer, serious actress. She wasn't just Catwoman. She went to the White House, and she talked to, it was Johnson, LBJ, and Lady Bird. I don't know why Mrs. Johnson was named Lady Bird Johnson, but that was her nickname. And she said to the Johnsons in the White House, here's what she said. Imagine this in Eartha Kitt's voice, which I won't try to do. You send the best of this country off to be shot and maimed. They rebel in the street. Yeah, they'll take pot and they will get high. They don't want to go to school because they're going to be snatched off from their mothers to be shot in Vietnam. Vietnam. Yes, we had not just selective service, which technically we all still have. We turn 18 and we sign up for selective service. Doesn't that sound nice? I want a selective position if I got to be in service, So back then we just called it the draft.
Or the meat grinder.
We had an active draft back in 68. And they didn't send, 37 people to Greenland They sent tens of thousands of boys to Vietnam to be killed. Eartha Kitt, on this date, goes to the White House and stands up to the Johnsons. Also on this date, Cary Grant was born. And I have in my notes somewhere a list of Cary Grant films that we have seen. And I'm wondering if there's any that we haven't seen that we should see. We've seen all of the Hitchcock films except for the first one.
We've seen North by Northwest, I think To Catch a Thief, Charade, The Bishop's Wife, Notorious.
Mm-hmm.
Have we seen An Affair to Remember?
I have, but you probably haven't.
I probably haven't. I think we saw The Philadelphia Story.
We did?
I don't think I saw Bringing Up Baby, Born to be Bad.
So tell us in the chat your favorite Cary Grant films, and maybe it will be one we haven't seen yet. Because I wanted to bring it up because a film we haven't talked about in a while, but I recommend, and every time we recommend it and somebody sees it for the first time, they say, oh my God, that was such a great film. You must see the film Only Angels Have Wings.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It is a top favorite film, and we haven't seen it in a few years. I think we're due to watch it again.
We are due to watch it again.
Even though we've seen it several times.
We have seen it several times.
If you are a Cary Grant fan at all, or just a Howard Hawks fan or a great films fan, make sure that you have seen the film Only Angels Have Wings.
Yes. And Rear Window is... Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Rear Window is good, yeah.
No.
But that's not Cary Grant.
That's not Cary Grant. That's James Stewart.
No, Cary Grant did do 4 Hitchcock films.
That's right.
At least the latter 3, including North by Northwest, are all very good. What was the first one? Was it called Suspicion? See if you can see that in your list there. Is that in the lower left-hand corner of your list?
Yes, it is.
So I haven't seen Suspicion yet. Somebody will tell me whether we should see that.
Indiscreet, My Favorite Wife. Oh, gosh, yeah. But yeah, Only Angels Have Wings.
Only Angels, and yeah. I mean, Cary Grant's fun no matter what he does. I wasn't a big fan of Arsenic and Old Lace. It was a little too frivolous about murder and stuff. And Cary Grant did the real screwball thing. Cary Grant is best doing screwball comedy when he's not too screwball. Like, His Girl Friday is probably the perfect balance for Cary Grant. Silly, but not silly. So, yeah, Arsenic and Old Lace was clever, but a little too much for me. If you love it, that's fine too. In the chat, Jennifer is saying that Julie Newmar was also on Star Trek once. I'll have to look that up. So was Lee Merriweather. Yeah, in the the original Star Trek, some great appearances by some great actresses. Sorry, Tom Harrison says, I first knew a Cary Grant from the Flintstones. Yes, they had him on as Cary Granite. Yes. Good stuff. And, Greg was getting an echo. Found the echo.
He had another...
Show playing in 2 windows. Okay, yeah, occasionally we make that mistake on our end, and it's our fault. But glad you were able to catch that. Yeah, Cary Granite and Anne Margrock. Yes. The Flintstones, they were so great. It's also Winnie the Pooh Day. So happy Winnie the Pooh Day. I've linked, of course, as I always do, to the Rainy Day song.
Yes.
And this is officially around the world. It's actually it's A.A. Milne's birthday, the author's birthday.
Okay.
So for those of you who are Winnie the Pooh fans, as I am, and I think the Disney films did a great job with that too. Happy Winnie the Pooh Day. That's all I got for On This Date.
Well, you know what? Actually, a couple of days ago, I think it was the 16th, Debbie Allen's birthday.
Debbie Allen's birthday.
Yeah.
The great Debbie Allen, the great choreographer, the great dancer, the great actress. Great everything. Oh, there she is. She's joining us for the show there. Look at that.
It's my first hero in life, Debbie Allen.
Official Debbie Allen Barbie doll that Amy received for Christmas.
Isn't she glorious?
From Santa Claus.
She's movable. You can even move her hands like that. So cool.
Yes, she articulates. She doesn't say much, but she's very articulate.
Yes.
Yes. So under shameless self-promotion and what are we listening to this week? Of course, I had to put in the band Fear's song, Let's Have a War. If you don't know the band Fear, if you're not a punk rocker, you might not get it. Amy, you tried exposing one of our dear friends to punk rock recently. And
yeah, poor Jennifer.
If you're not a punk rock person, none of that's going to make any sense to you. But Yeah, it was an experience. But I do love the song "Let's Have a War," which is terrible, like everything Fear does. But it's terrible in all the right ways.
Yes, this.
Because it makes exactly as much sense as that Vietnam War did. There have been wars that were, I was going to say just wars, but just war is a terrible theory. There have been wars that have been righteous wars. Obviously, are fighting and winning World War II. Vietnam was not one of those wars, and so a song like "Let's Have a War," so you can go die. It's well worth a listen in that context.
So back in the late 70s, early 80s, there were what was called Nazi punks. And, the Dead Kennedys did a very eloquent song called Nazi Punks Fuck Off. And very lovely.
There goes our PG rating. But
I'm
yes,
sorry, I said park.
The punk rockers were great at fighting people who tried to be punk, the skinhead types.
But Fear, they were sort of like performance artists in the sense that they weren't Nazis.
No.
But they made fun of them through sarcasm.
Yes, which
is valid, by the way. I think, anyway.
Yes.
I think so. You may not think so, but I do.
It's a song that makes sense if you realize just how senseless wars and I'm not talking, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, these minor wars, which we shouldn't have been in, but nonetheless, Nicaragua, for example, the actions that far worse were, Afghanistan, which didn't amount to anything, but obviously left a lot of people killed and maimed and damaged, and not even in small numbers on the other side. And you think, I don't care about the other side, but if it's a senseless war, what the hell? So yeah, Let's Have a War makes perfect sense. Well, there are people talking about war now. We'll get to that in a minute, but also under what are we listening to this week, there's a video there called "Why Don't Americans Like Beans on Toast?" And I don't know if I only caught the beginning of the video so far, but I had to share it because I was curious. Because we're always I'm always perplexed by the so-called English breakfast. And that includes baked beans for breakfast. And you hear my voice and I'm confused, but I know our friends in the UK are saying, well, yeah, if you're ever going to go all out and indulge in a proper English breakfast, why not?
As I recall, when we had a proper English breakfast, when we were in London a few years back.
We found this great little diner underneath the tracks. Great. And like in a tunnel. And
you knew it was authentic because the construction worker guys came there and had breakfast.
Yes.
And but they had a whole plate. You had the black pudding, you had the tomato slices. You're like, what is that? And then you had the baked beans. And now I didn't put them on my toast. They did include toast, but the baked beans, as I recall, were not as sweet. Here we have Bush's baked beans, which have quite a bit of brown sugar taste to them. But as I recall, those baked beans in London were not as sweet, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I vaguely remember them being...
if you're in the chat, Matthew, let us know if you liked baked beans on toast and if you think that they're not as sweet as what we're talking about.
Yeah, we should order a can of beans from Ackroyd's, the Scottish bakery near here, where you can get proper British baked beans. And they're Heinz. They're, you would think the same company, but here in America, baked beans are very sweet and with a barbecue sauce edge to them, and they come in different flavors now, onion flavored and all these. It just doesn't come up for me that I should toast some bread and then put baked beans on it.
Yeah.
Different strokes. Also under shameless self-promotion, last week's episode, the interview that we did with Catherine Dickerson is doing very well in the view counts. So thank you for those of you who watched it live and those of you who watched it afterward.
That was a very sweet interview.
It was. But I haven't done any new shorts yet, so we'll see how that goes. I even added that to the show notes as a reminder to myself. Some of you who didn't see that, why is Robert talking about his underwear? No, the shorts that I need to do are video shorts. The most watched video on 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir is actually a 1 minute short clip. 10,000 views, and I haven't gotten around to doing a follow-up to it yet. But that is on my to-do list based on that interview with Catherine. So thank you for that. On the YBS, well, actually that takes us right into the Robert and Amy Take on the News section. And
Woo! the news, how fun.
You may have noticed that Robert and Amy Take on the News started out as a 60-second, and I don't mean that in the sense of 5 minutes. I mean a real 60-second clip, not clip, but a short section about us giving our take on the news.
A few sentences.
And then it got a little longer, maybe 5 minutes or so. And it seems to get longer and longer. And we seem to have hit I don't know what tipping point even means, but we seem to have hit a certain point where, yeah, the news is getting big and heavy. And this week, I thought, okay, let's talk about the news. So we're going to talk about the news.
All right.
Under Robert and Amy Take on the News, the first item you'll see in the show notes, if you look at the description on YouTube or Facebook, YBS, the Yarn Book Show. And the title of the video that I posted is, If You Join ICE. Now, this is not, a drink on ice versus neat, straight no chaser. No, the immigration communist,
the immigration communist, something with an E. Let's see, I stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Yeah, we know what ICE stands. Well, okay. I know what I think ICE stands for.
What's that?
Nothing. They don't stand for anything. They just do what they're told by the administration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I won't get into that yet. But the name of the video on our Yarn Book Show is, If You Join ICE Under These Conditions, You're Not a Good Person. Now, that's a great title. It's very clickbaity, but Yarn actually backs that up with, I think he does it pretty well, kind of like Harry Binswanger did this week. If you join ICE under these conditions. Well, what really matters there is the under these conditions part. And I want to talk a little bit about that just for a minute by talking about Barack Obama. Incidentally, Matthew Humphreys in the chat says, I only ever eat baked beans as part of a full English breakfast or brunch, and they don't taste sweet at all. So that's what I figured. It can't be these, massively brown sugared and corn syruped beans, which are delicious here in the States, but don't seem like breakfast food to me. So that sounds right. Okay. ICE. Nowadays, certain people, like us, we think ICE and we think, oh, okay, yeah,
I think F ICE.
Jackbooted thugs of the Trump administration, but ICE has been around for a while.
Yeah.
The INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, they did go more gangbusters when they, became a whole new agency out of the Department of Homeland Security, and they changed the enforcement arm to ICE. But that's not new. That's not a Trump thing. So under the Barack Obama administration, the Obama administration removed a total of 2.75 to 3 million unauthorized immigrants from the United States between 2009 and 2016. But there were no riots in the streets. Nobody getting shot, no hysteria, just enforcement of the immigration laws.
Yes.
And
why is that?
Well, because most of them were returns, apprehension at the border.
Yes.
But they did deportations too. The manner of enforcement was, depending on which statistics you look at, more reasonable, more consistent with the law.
Yes. What
we call due process, which just sounds kind of technical, and people want to say, well, criminals don't deserve due process. Illegals don't deserve due process. Illegals don't deserve American law. Not only is that wrong, it's dangerous, because the whole premise of a due process system is when you grab somebody off the streets, you don't know if they are a criminal. And you say, well, because they're a criminal, they don't deserve due process. Because they're illegal, they don't deserve due process. It's a contradiction in terms. It makes like, absolutely, it's a non sequitur.
And if you're an American, it's like, why don't you just shoot yourself in the foot? Because, I mean, if you're...
What do you mean, if you're an American, why don't you just shoot yourself in the foot?
If you're going to say,
if you're going to advocate for that,
these criminals, they don't deserve due process. Well, how do you know they're criminals? It's because you don't know that they're criminals.
Because I trust the system.
And what's the system?
Yeah.
The system includes due process, you dunderheads.
The whole point of due process, even if you thought that people who weren't citizens or didn't belong in the country don't deserve due process.
So is that...
Without due process, you don't know they belong in the country.
For those people who say, criminals don't deserve whatever, due process, you know what? Do you deserve due process? Is it going to come a time where, of course, due process, nobody deserves that, because we know who's the criminal and you are the criminal.
I think to a certain person, due process is a dog whistle. When they hear due process, they think lenient, being easy on criminals. Ultimately, they think the left.
Yeah.
They don't actually think when they hear the words due process.
And they don't see it as an advantage to themselves and their loved ones.
It's interesting that Barack Obama got the nickname the Deporter-in-Chief. Deporter-in-Chief. Due to the record-setting numbers, immigrant advocacy groups often referred to President Obama as the Deporter-in-Chief. But that's because he enforced immigration law. ICE agents began regularly wearing face masks like balaclavas and gaiters to hide their identities during enforcement operations around March of 2025. A practice defended by leadership as protecting officers from doxing and family harm, though critics see it as increasing fear and allowing imposters to commit crimes. How do you know somebody's really an ICE agent? With the trend tied to heightened immigration enforcement, targeting specific groups, creating significant public concern and debates over accountability. Haven't we been here before? This is, it just sounds like the people sporting this are like out of chocolate. Something must be done, Serge. Something must be done.
You told me that something must be done.
Well, something was being done. You can't say that Obama didn't enforce immigration law when 3 million people were deported. And you can't say, well, they're okay with him doing it, but not Trump doing it. When ICE is now, wearing masks and doing the things that they're doing. It's either one or the other. Either enforcing immigration law is okay, but it needs to be done in a civilized fashion, or it's not okay and it doesn't matter how it gets done. So haven't we been here before? I mentioned Vietnam, and Vietnam was justified on the basis of necessity. If we don't do this, if we don't take a substantial percentage of our young men, force them into the army, send them off to fight, tens of thousands of them are going to die. Many of them aren't going to come back, or come back so damaged they might as well not have come back. But if we don't do that, the communists will win. Well, where did we hear that this week? You may have seen a post, a tweet, what the Bulwark likes to call a bleat, by the Commander-in-Chief, Prezi McAprentice, who said, we need Greenland to be part of the United States. Now, he said this months ago. He said this toward the beginning of his second term. And everybody laughed it off, just the way he said, Canada needs to be part of the U.S. They need to be our 51st state. Now he's serious. Now he's actually changing policies to try to make this happen. For example, imposing not retaliatory, actually, what would you call these, punishing tariffs on countries that won't talk to him seriously about making Greenland part of the United States.
Vengeful.
Because, it's on the basis of necessity. The communist advance, or the Russian advance, needs to be stopped. And if we don't do this, we can't protect Canada. We can't protect America. We certainly can't protect Greenland. At the moment, we do have selective service registration, but we don't have the draft. And personally, I don't think for a moment that we're going to have an active military invasion of Greenland. But I do think all sorts of terrible things are going to happen if the president doesn't get what he wants. If his desires aren't acquiesced to. Before we go any further with this, let me catch up on the chat real quick, because I see we've got some comments here. Akira Felix says, isn't it absurd that they arrest people just for following them around and filming? They sent journalists and lawyers to make sure soldiers respect absurd international law, but filming is too much? Mm-hmm. And, yeah. Yeah, and there's an interesting post out there by Mark Cormez. I only mention the name because it's a public post, so I know he's happy to have it mentioned. As long as you tell him that it is perfect. Seriously, he was kind of funny about that. But in this case, it's reasonable because it actually is perfect. And let me just read the beginning of this. And if you're not already friends with Mark V. Cormez with a K-O-R-M-E-S, you should friend him or at least follow him so you can read things like this. In response to one of those entities that insists that a lot of objectivists, quote, prefer the left, I'll be bold and speak for all of us who call ourselves objectivists and denounce the right in the harshest possible terms, and say, I know none of us who, quote, prefer the left. Zip, zero, zilch, nada. Anyone who wants to correct me can do so in the comments. People who do prefer the left stop calling themselves objectivists and declare objectivism as a right-wing, MAGA-loving, pro-fascist, or at its best, anti-fascist philosophy that they want nothing to do with. Okay, I got to agree with Mark on that. Mm-hmm. And he makes the point that he did vote for Harris, but it was precisely to vote against Trump. And I agree with that. None of us have anything positive to say about Harris other than, and this is not nothing, she's not Trump. In fact, she was the only thing standing in the way of Trump, and now that she's gone, what we have is Trump. So it's a much longer post than that. Absolutely do read that if you want more on that perspective. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is, and Amy, I want to know what you think of this.
Okay.
The idea that we need Greenland in order to more effectively protect the Western Hemisphere, in order to build our own version of the Iron Dome against Russia, for example. Because, and the amazing thing is that Trump actually had the cojones, the stones, the foolishness to say this in his post, because it's expensive to maintain the military bases that we have in Greenland, and it is weighing on the American taxpayer. We have to take over that country because it's expensive to keep doing it the way we're doing it. It's not that we can't. It's not that we can't keep doing it the way we're doing it now. It's not that Greenland has denied us having military bases that we need. We're in Greenland. The military, the United States military is there. But it's expensive to be there and not have Greenland be part of America. So since it's expensive and since it weighs on the American taxpayer, and since, oh wait, he didn't say this part, the American taxpayer is unhappy with the Trump economy, Greenland just needs to be handed over. Denmark needs to give it to us. And he will argue, I think he has argued, there will be compensations, when we mine it for its minerals and other resources. Well, we'll hand some of that over to Denmark. We'll cut them a couple %. Kind of like Kilo. Wait, wasn't that a Donald Trump thing too?
Yes.
When he used eminent domain, because, if they let me knock that house down and build the things I want to build, it's going to be better for everyone. What can you do when you have to deal with people?
Well, the man is insane. He's the orange stain is insane. I'll just say.
Well, that's okay.
And yeah, I'll just say that rhymes at least. But yeah, no, I mean, Jennifer says, so cut taxes and abolish tariffs. Yeah. The idea, we kind of went back and forth about, why Greenland? And, it would take one of our friends had said, not in a public post, it would take years to mine the place if we wanted whatever, metals or any kind of things that we would want to mine there. There's no roads in Greenland. There's nobody there to do anything. We would have to move people to Greenland who would want to actually move to Greenland. And anyway, yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. I personally can't imagine why this is going on, except for one reason, which is the same reason he has 3,000 ICE agents in Minneapolis, of all places.
And what is that?
The same reason all of this is taking place. And I think it's because it all coincides with the fact that the DOJ has not actually released all of the Epstein files, and he wants to make sure that that is off of people's tables, that no one's thinking about that. I can only imagine what's in the Epstein files is very, very bad for Donald Trump. There are people who have accused him of all kinds of things, and in terms of a timeline, there's certainly circumstantial evidence, and there is probably real evidence that he had a lot of heinous wrongdoing with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, most of those files have been released now. And
they say that there's like 1 million more pages or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Their lawyers are going over it.
All right. Yeah, best I can tell, at least the way it looks to me, is the Epstein files make a lot of people look bad. It makes Trump look bad, but none of it is going to turn out to be anything for which he'll be criminally liable, just stuff that he didn't want out there. And
yeah, Ian says, they've released just a couple percentages of the files.
I'm always a little skeptical that is the explanation for anything, but it's possible.
I'm skeptical of that too. It's not something I would say lightly. That, it sounds like almost like it must be a conspiracy. Well, it is advantageous for Donald Trump to throw all kinds of crap at us all at once.
Well, feel free to tell us in the chat. Do you think it's about the Epstein files? I think that's an element, but I think
it's definitely an element.
The bigger picture is that that's just one element in a constant confusion campaign. You notice something new, something big comes up every couple of weeks. There's always another thing. It's never over. It's never just next week. I'm saying this in a manner that is as confused as what I'm explaining. Next week, Sunday. So this week, something terrible is going to happen.
Right.
Trump will do something so bad that we won't forget Greenland, but who's talking about Venezuela anymore? We will forget Greenland the way that we've forgotten Venezuela, the way that we've forgotten, I don't know, whatever came before that. Every week, it is something new and something really, really inexplicably outrageous. Mm-hmm. If I had told you a week and a half ago that the Greenland comment from way back when was going to get serious, you wouldn't believe it. And if I had told you 3 weeks ago that we were going to invade Venezuela, capture its leader, put him in New York to put him on trial, install not a freedom-minded individual like the person who actually won their last election, but instead Maduro's vice president, who is no more freedom-oriented than he was, and run the country behind the scenes, you would have said that's ridiculous. That's not going to happen.
On top of that, and demand the Nobel Peace Prize from the actual woman who was the opposition leader, and get it.
Oh. But that's the 4D chess thing. That's where the administration...
The 4D mess.
The 4D mess thing. The administration wants that. They want to see these memes that you're seeing about, Taylor Swift giving away her Grammys to Trump and Olympian athletes giving their medals to Trump and, parodies of this nonsense of the Nobel Peace Prize winner handing Trump her prize as if that's somehow a prize for him. He wants that. because he wants us both angry and laughing about it, rather than taking the other things that we're angry and laughing about seriously. It's okay if you're angry about Venezuela if you're also laughing about it, because that makes it no more or no less serious than what's going on in Venezuela, or what's going on with Greenland, or what's going on with the Jeffrey Epstein files. And part of what needs to happen there, and most of you know better, is we need to take him both seriously and not metaphysically.
Yes.
And that way you can laugh without losing the sense of, but this is an outrage and I do need to fight it.
Yes.
And it's being fought. You know, we've had a bit of a disagreement with our friend James Valiant lately about ICE and what went on with the Renee Good story, the Renee Good tragedy, the Renee Good outrage. And here, I'm going to put up a meme, just because I want to see what the reaction in the chat is to this.
Okay, I don't know what this
for those of you listening to the podcast later, I'm going to read it out loud. Here you go. Let's see. Oh, why did that? Oh, here we go. Okay. It's just a text meme, and it says, quote, "You won't get killed if you just obey," unquote, is not something you say to people in a free country. Now, that's what you say to hostages.
Mm-hmm.
And that from our friends at the American Capitalist Party.org, Mark Pellegrino and Michael and Andrew Bernstein. And very strange to still see his picture up on their homepage. But we can talk about that too. Now, our good friend James Valiant is quick to point out, would you say that about the police? No, actually you wouldn't. If you're being arrested by the police, and it's some circumstance where they have reason to believe you're doing something really dangerous, so they've got a gun pointed at you, yeah, you're going to obey. You're going to do whatever you've got to do to get out of that moment, to get out of that emergency situation. You are going to do whatever the police tell you to do until that gun is no longer pointed at your head. So what do we think about that in comparison with the ICE agents?
Well, ICE is not law enforcement. And I want to get into this a little bit because there's some distinction. I know that I said this.
I'm asking precisely because I want to hear what you think about that. And the folks on the chat.
Yeah. I said this a day after the shooting because I thought about it. I thought, okay, Amy, put on your philosophical thinking cap here. Try to understand the different perspectives with regard to the situation. This is not just a situation to get really pissed about, really angry about. It's something to really think about. What is ICE? How are they acting? What standards are they acting from? Who is giving the orders? And are they? What are the similarities between them and the police, and why? And this came up in my mind because I had done a little research with regard to the standard practice of police officers across the country who will avoid doing two things. And they decided this back in the 1970s because a lot of innocent bystanders were being killed because of this. Number one, as a police officer, do not stand in front of a running vehicle. Even if it's in park, don't stand in front of a running vehicle. Number two, if the vehicle is coming at you, do not shoot the driver. What they found in the 1970s was that there were a number of people, including a 10-year-old boy or something in New York City, who had been run down because somebody shot the driver. And when you shoot a driver, especially if you get them in the head, their body will tense up and then their foot will become lead on the gas pedal. And the car is completely out of control at this point. You cannot control where the car is going, and the car may run somebody down who is innocent. So they decided, and it's been accepted across the country not to do those two things. Get in front of a running vehicle or shoot at the driver if they're coming at you. You can shoot into the engine compartment. That might disable the vehicle. You can jump out of the way. It's what they usually do. Jump out of the way. So there are certain things that they do. This is a difference between a police officer and an ICE agent. As far as I understand, and Harry Binswanger had a really excellent article about this.
Yeah, if you haven't already signed onto Harry Binswanger's Substack, look it up.
And it's free. This article is free. Go to Substack, find Harry Binswanger, find his article about ICE versus law enforcement. And he will say, I was completely astounded. He said, ICE is not law enforcement. It's exactly what I said. Because they don't, but their identity is different. They are getting their orders from one branch of the government. They're not integrated in with the different branches of the government. Or they're not integrated in with local law enforcement. The way that they are behaving right now is not upholding or enforcing law. They are lawless, and they are getting their orders not from any kind of reference to the law as we now have it, that the police officers actually abide by. They're getting it from Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and all these other creatures out there. And it's ruled by men, not by law. That is the big difference. So when I said that, I think I kind of freaked some people out. They're like, oh my gosh, Amy is an anarchist or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Jennifer's saying, why does ICE even exist? ICE is a executive branch arm that manages immigration. And again, we've had that. This is not a new Trump thing. We had that under Barack Obama, who deported 3 million people who were in the country illegally. And I'm sure many of those people needed to be deported. People who were criminals, were actually committing crimes in the United States. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say they all did, because being illegal is a crime. Being an illegal immigrant is a crime. Crossing the border is a crime. But yeah, ICE exists for a reason. Yeah,
and they existed prior to Donald Trump being in office. And so did the Department of Justice. And again, just as with ICE, the Department of Justice is not beholden to the law at this point.
Right.
It's beholden to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and that would be the point that I would want to make. And the reason why I brought up the Obama administration, you could find similar references in the Bush administration, not the Bush, the Biden administration, well, the Bush administration too. But under Bush and under Obama, the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, did have some restraint and some respect for due process. They actually had processes. And there were very few, I shouldn't say there were very few, there were fewer accusations, and for good reason, of racism, or back then it was Islamophobia. And they took those things seriously. They cared to be sure that that was not an element of the enforcement of immigration law. And the difference back then was not only was there some respect for due process, for their own processes, their own regulations, procedures, protections of those who were being rounded up, but also people had recourse to the law, to the courts. If you were picked up by ICE, you had rights, and your rights were respected, just like any criminal who is in jail and has his rights. If they pick you up for jaywalking, they can't throw you in a cell or hang you from a noose. Mm-hmm. They have to follow the law. Before ICE in its current iteration with its current quota system, there was at least some degree greater respect for that. And that is what we're losing. That's what's being captured in video by the protesters who are keeping an eye on what's going on. I don't like most of what I see going on with these protests, but that's irrelevant. The fact that, some of these people really are crazy leftists who I would be fighting right now if it wasn't for everything else that's going on is irrelevant. I hope, taking a cue from Mark Cormez's post, I hope we get back, and soon, hopefully sooner than January 21st, 2029, I hope we get back to the days when I can start fighting the left again. And in some ways, I'm fighting them even now. But to answer the claims of my good friend Dr. Andrew Bernstein, the left is not the bigger threat right now. They are not the more urgent threat right now. And I'll be happy to back that up 5 ways from Sunday, but we've already gone over 5 minutes. I don't want to go too long.
Yeah, I do want to say a couple of other things here. And this is going to go kind of merge into how do we cope through all of this, which we'll get to in a second.
That will be our crowning achievement.
Yes.
We'll need to mention Greenland once more before we get to that too.
But before we get to Greenland and coping, I want to make sure that, I don't know if anybody of the right people will hear this, but I think some people, when I said ICE is not law enforcement, I'm assuming that they kind of freaked out because
ICE is law enforcement.
ICE is enforcement. I don't know. They're enforcing something.
That's a good way of putting it.
Is enforcement.
It is enforcement.
It is force.
Or just forcement. Yeah.
And yes, I wasn't calling on people to go out, find an ICE officer and kick him in the shins and say, ha ha, sucker, and then get shot. No.
Yeah, or to become a vigilante.
Right.
James is making the point that so long as we have law in this country, then we need to respect the fact that ICE is part of law enforcement. And in the words he's using, I agree. On the terms he's discussing it, I just think that there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I disagreed with him. I think
I'll explain in a minute.
I think he at one point, and I don't know if he would say this now, just to be fair, I don't know. But I think he referred to Renee Good, the mother who was shot in her vehicle, as a felon. I don't think that that's applicable. I disagree with that. Yeah. But
the point is, without accepting that what happened to Renee Good was valid, what can and should be done by those who are protesting what's going on? I had mentioned it's not a question of whether we want to follow Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. Famously, the disagreement there, Martin Luther King Jr. said we need peaceful protests no matter what. Malcolm X was more about action. I think we need peaceful protests, and I think that is action. I think we need to not make it easy. And we can do that by speech, but speech that isn't just writing letters to the editor or putting videos on the internet. We can be speaking out. We don't need to interfere with law enforcement to make ourselves visible to law enforcement and to those who watch the videos that are made in the meantime. And it's a fine line. I fully appreciate that it's a fine line, and I don't want to recommend any form of law breaking or even the initiation of force. But I don't think we need to be quiet or nice on ICE either. So, yeah, I always say fight fire with love. Fight fire with values, fight fire with reason.
Yes.
But like it or not, and I don't like it, but like it or not, the irrational and the complacent may need to see action, not violence, but more than calm speech to be awakened.
Yes.
I don't know if Martin Luther King Jr. would have been as effective without a little bit of Malcolm X on the scene. At some point, you get at least elements of this being an emergency.
Yes.
So again, I'm not recommending anybody break the law, and I'm not recommending that anybody initiate physical force against another individual. But I don't think that exhausts the possibilities. I think when we say, well, you can speak and that's all you can do, we may have too limited an idea of what that's all you can do means, of what speech can mean.
Yes.
You know, those who disagree with the powers that be, and it seems like that's the majority of our chat, those who disagree with the powers that be, we need to be seen, we need to be heard, and we need to be loud for a lot of reasons, not least of which is that each of us needs to know that we are not alone, that we are not the minority. The great thing about seeing these rallies, and you think, oh yeah, there's a bunch of liberals and leftists out there causing trouble. The great thing about seeing 500,000 people saying no is that now we know 500,000 people over there are saying no. And that tells me, yeah, and I'm sure 500,000 people over there are saying no, and 1 million people there are saying no. And people are saying no all over the country. And that needs to be visible to those in power.
Yes.
And I can hear you guys saying, I can hear myself saying, well, they don't care.
No,
They will care. It matters. It makes a difference to say to those in power, no. Well, that won't change what they do. You're right. Except at some point it will. It will have whatever impact it will have, and that needs to happen. The word no needs to be loud and clear and unignorable.
And even if you look at this from a different perspective, there is, I think we've talked about this before with regard to attending the No Kings rallies and things that we've done. There is psychological value to this. There's spiritual value to this. And if you find yourself, of course, in a situation where you are in a dangerous place and there are people throwing pellet balls at you and you know, and there's no real escape plan, and you may want to rethink your protesting. But if you are in a situation like, for instance, in Detroit, where thankfully there has been no ice surge coming in, and it seems to be pretty low key compared to even Chicago, then yeah, you might want to say, okay, this might be reasonable, this might be rational. I'll get a poster board and I will go and I'll find some people who I might, you know, I probably won't stick around or hang around with people who are wearing the
balaclavas?
no,
Masks?
the
on the left,
kafars,
yeah, the pro-Palestine people.
The pro-Palestine people, right? You know, so you could find some other people to say hello to or whatever, to be friendly with. But there are a lot of good people out there in the protest movement right now. And a lot of them are very scared. A lot of them are old. A lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are absolutely can't believe what's going on right now. It's absolutely surreal and it's extremely violating. And when you show up, what you're going to get is you're going to be in a welcome environment, and you're going to be supportive, and you're going to find support during this kind of situation. You don't want to clam up. You want to speak out in any way that you can right now. I remember there was a time when Ayn Rand was, when she first came over to America, and I think she was protesting like FDR, New Deal, or something along those lines. And she would go into a public square in New York City, and she would make a speech. I don't know how often she did this. I'd have to ask Shoshana Milgram about this, but she did. She did speak in public in that. She hated speaking in public, but she did. And it may not have been a big impact. It doesn't matter if it's going to get everybody's attention. The point is that you have integrity. The point is that you are finding spiritual value in speaking out. And that same goes with contacting your representatives. Go into Google, type in the words, find my representatives, find your representatives, and write something to them. Write something to them every day. You know, instead of doing a Facebook post, write something to them and be helpful. Tell them how to get out of their political mess. Tell them what the right ideas are. Yeah. So, was there anything more about Greenland?
No, I think I'm going to leave it there. Yeah. I mentioned it on the comparison of Greenland to Vietnam is bizarre. The idea that we would decide to use force, even if at this point it's just tariffs, but especially talking about getting the military ready for actions that may be necessary in regard to Greenland. The idea that we would use that kind of force the same way that we did, for the same reason, to make sure that Russia didn't take over the world, that we did in Vietnam or in Korea. The idea that we would do that now in peacetime and against one of our allies.
Yeah.
As I say, you just every week you get a new jaw dropper, and you'd love to shrug it off, like the whole Gulf of America nonsense. I mean, you can't even remember the last ridiculous thing 5 months ago because of the ridiculous thing that happened 4 months ago and 3 months ago and 2 months ago and 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I do.
Before I wrap up.
Before you wrap up, there's a couple things really important here. Unfriending people on Facebook. You know, we talked to a good friend of ours the other night, and I was talking through this and kind of, I've unfriended a few people. A couple people have unfriended me. You know what? It's Facebook. Who cares? Well, maybe some people do. It's Facebook. It's a social media platform. It's supposed to be sharing photos and videos and having friendly haha discussions and sharing memes that are funny and bunny videos. And that's what it's for.
Yeah. I take Facebook very seriously, but I don't take it that much to heart.
And
put it that way.
So there may be one or two people I'm no longer friends with on Facebook that I may actually see eventually in real life. You know what? And if the time is right, the issues are settled, maybe they've come around, and the situation is right, then I'll maybe friend them again. That's not unheard of.
My suggestion in that regard is the same as my suggestion in regard to social media in general, which is do what serves you, but do it intentionally.
Yes.
As we say, mindfully. Do it for a reason. Even if you're, just trying not to waste too much time on social media, but especially if you're dealing with conflict, know your purpose, know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I never unfriend anybody. And sometimes, Amy, you've gotten me thinking twice about that. Because I always said, well, I'm saving that until the end here. So what else is on your mind?
And the other thing, so Linda Cordair from Cordair.com, Quaint Cordair, fine art, wonderful art.
CORDAIR.com.
Yeah, wonderful place to go on the internet.
Yes, and look up Quent Cordair's latest book.
Yes.
Yeah, book number 3 in the series, Idolatry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what were you saying that Linda was saying?
She posted something like, how do you all get back to sleep if you can't sleep?
Oh.
And, or, how do you distress, or how do you find some serenity? And that's something that you need to really ask yourself seriously. How can I get serenity in this chaos, seeing all these atrocities on the news every day? And there are a few things, because I mentioned to Linda, I said, if I can't go back to sleep, I try to meditate. And so what that means is I try to look, because we have a humidifier going in the bedroom, while we're trying to sleep. So I kind of zone in on that sound. So I try to kind of like zone in on that sound, clear my mind, or try to think about all, how my body is feeling, and then do some box breathing, which basically means, inhale 4 beats, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and do nothing for 4. Basically, somewhere around those calculations. Just focus on your breathing and do it consistently, and eventually you'll find yourself dozing off again. Robert, you came up with a great one, which is count from 300 backwards by threes. So, 300, 297, 294, 291, and just keep going because it's so boring and it makes you focus on something that is kind of monotonous, and then you'll end up falling asleep. Unfortunately, we have those pretty much memorized for ourselves, so that's not really working for us. But
it still works pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the whole idea is to do something that is almost no effort, but just distracting enough that you don't think too much about other things.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good post and a good conversation. Akira Felix brings up something in the chat that I'm not going to be able to get too much into without spending another half hour, but he says, I don't think you can simply come around about supporting the secret police. This is in regard to the idea that, that people who support ICE might come around. You're right, but what does happen, and this gets back to the conversation we had the other night with a friend of ours, which is that the nice thing, this is going to sound weird, the good thing, the little bit of the bright side of the fact that the current administration gives us a new outrage every week or every few days is that every time that happens, he sheds a few supporters. Now, it's just 0.001%. It's not losing a big chunk of his majority or anything, but a few. And the neat thing about that is every time it's something completely different. Venezuela and Greenland are one thing, Epstein is another thing, and bulldozing part of the White House is another thing. And every time he does something different, there's somebody who says, well, that I can't get behind, and eventually says, okay, that's too much for me. I can't support the left, but I'm not a Trump supporter at this point. And I've seen that happen with only a few friends, not a lot of people, but it's only going to take a few if this keeps going on. So you're right. If somebody supports ICE, they're not going to just come around. Slowly, very, very slowly, and the more that happens, a few people here and there finally reach that tipping point. That's a case where tipping point actually makes sense. Yeah. And I think have seen some people kind of question it at first with regard to the shooting of Renee Good. And now they weren't entirely sure, but then they came around, and then I'm like, oh, okay, they're gathering enough evidence. They're critically thinking. They are now questioning it critically. And I saw two.
Yeah.
I saw two people change their minds based on the evidence.
Yes.
And everybody else is just, they find the videos that show what they want to believe. And so you got two people out of 1,500 friends I've got on Facebook.
But that matters.
But that 0.001 matters because next week it's going to be something else.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the latest compilation of videos by the New York Times. I know the New York Times, the leftist drag, but the latest compilation of videos by the New York Times is pretty conclusive about what happened. Yes. You can decide for yourself what that all means, but I do recommend that. If you're not a subscriber and you can't see it, just send me a message on Facebook. I'll send you a gift link because I am a subscriber in a very special way that I'm not going to share with you right now, but trust me on that one. One of my most controversial social media posts, and I believe this more strongly than ever, was when I declared on social media that people should be more careful with what they consume, what they take in, what gets into their consciousness, especially on social media, but also just in generally. We should consciously choose how to spend our leisure time, what we focus on, what we're looking at, what we're hearing. We should curate the art and the media that we consume, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of films you're going to watch, what kind of television you take in. And absolutely, we should be conscious of the kind of humor, the kind of catharsis that we seek. All of these choices, they have a massive impact, far, far more than our work or the food we eat or the way we dress, or the fashion of furnishings in our house. And most importantly, these things have more impact on us, believe it or not, than politics or the news of the day.
Yep.
And most people don't even realize it, or they just take their choices for granted. We have a world right now in 2026, January 18th, we have a world of incredible magnificence and outrageous viciousness. You know, the beauty is out there. The inspiration, the kindred spirits are out there. And so is all of the ugliness. Be reasonably selective, and you can find enough delight to fill an entire lifetime. And the exact same thing is true of despair. There's no end of it. There's no end of fun, uplifting, good-natured, like comedy. And also there's no end of dark, bitter humor, dank stuff. Benevolent art, malevolent art. Inspiring films, depressing films. Joyous music, angry music. And it is not subjectivism, and it's certainly not evasion, to choose far more of the former and less of the latter. And at a bare minimum, don't lie to yourself and say, it doesn't matter what I take in. Doesn't matter what I watch, doesn't matter what I listen to, doesn't matter what kind of movies I want to see, it doesn't matter what kind of music. Don't lie to yourself.
Yes. Your mind matters.
If you get something out of something really dark, good. But know what it is, why it is, what it's doing to you, the price that you're paying for it, and whether it was worth it. And if it is, go for it. Okay, that's what I wrote years ago. My point is, today, that is as true as ever, and we need to bring the news element into it. And my lesson is not going to be, don't pay attention to the news. I'm not even going to go like Yaron Brook and say, just let Yaron Brook tell you all the news and then ignore the news after that. But be conscious about it. Decide how much of it you're going to take in. Decide how much you're going to let them live in your brain. Yeah, there's that annoying expression, they live rent-free in your brain. But decide how much of that you want to let happen. And the archetype for this, and this is an Atlas Shrugged spoiler. If you've never read Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged, but you intend to, give me 45 seconds here of, maybe turn down the volume a little bit. The archetype of this is John Galt. And I know some of you who've read Atlas Shrugged are saying, wait a minute, John Galt was the one who absolutely, he took on the world. He took on the entire political machine, the from the top to the bottom. And he took it all very seriously, and he put together a plan to, make it all go away, solve all the problems. He was the protagonist. And that's 100% true. He's also the one who said to Dagny Taggart, don't think of them. Never think of pain or fear or enemies a moment longer than is necessary to fight them. Think of the scene when Dagny crash lands in the valley and she's unconscious, and she wakes up and she sees this amazing face and she says, we never had to take any of it seriously, did we? And what does John Galt say to her? No, we never had to. Mm-hmm. The man who's taking it more seriously than anybody else in the world knows that when he's not fighting, that's not the time to think of them. So do fight. Fight with words. Fight with action. Well, not with action, but with words in action. But don't let it matter that much. I've said before that you should decide in advance how much of your time you're going to do this. How much of the time you're going to spend fighting disvalues versus living your values, focusing on the positive, doing things, working, playing, loving, romancing, listening to music, going to art, going to games, doing all this stuff. Decide in advance. Put a number on it. I've always said my number is 97.3. 97% of my time, I'm going to live the best life I can. 3% of my time, I got to buy insurance. I got to support the police. I've got to put locks on my doors. I've got to engage in politics to some degree, or at least send some money to people who are. 97.3 is pretty good. Well, you noticed I called the show tonight 96.4.
Yeah.
You know, in Force 10, Rush sings about tough times. And yeah, these are tough times demanding tough talk, which is why we had this unusual episode tonight. And yeah, I'm willing to go 96.4 for a while.
Or 94.6. That's what I'll be doing. And
yeah.
And I one last thing before we wrap up. And whatever we want to say.
One more thing to wrap up.
Okay. Is that I thought about this recently. I thought about, what, you look at the news, you see what the politicians are saying, you know that they're lying. Or they're jumping to conclusions, with regard to the Renee Good shooting or whatever it is. Obviously, there's not been an investigation. Obviously, Donald Trump saying what he said was a lie with regard to it. Or you see somebody on Facebook saying something that's completely absurd and not in line with reality. As objectivists or as critical thinkers, however you want to put that, have pride in your reasoning mind. Have pride in knowing that you can see what is true. I'll leave you with two things that I've been thinking about in terms of art and inspiration and spiritual fuel. The first one, I don't have it with me, but you can look it up. It's the many different versions of truth coming out of the well. And I'm forgetting who the artist is, but there is an artist who created these really, really amazing, sometimes very intense and powerful pictures of women, nude or half-dressed or whatever it is, in the well or coming out of the well and yelling, telling people what is the truth, even though people are trying, even though men behind her or whatever it is are trying to hold her back. She keeps driving forward and she keeps telling the truth. And that image has been stuck in my head the last couple of weeks. And the other artistic work has been Rudyard Kipling's If. Reread that. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. And it goes on. If you can keep your head, if you can keep your reasoning mind, even though the world may be falling apart, even though the consensus may be entirely irrational, hold on to the truth for your own selfish sake. And that is what I'm leaving you with.
See, now you make me want to quote Atlas Shrugged again. See if I can read this without getting choked up. When we talk about taking all the insanity out there seriously, what we mean is treating it as metaphysical. In other words, treating them not as if just that they're evil, but as if they are right for the world as it is, and we're all wrong. We're all idealists who have no connection to reality. The problem with the current administration, it's evil. But more fundamentally, and the reason why we'll take it seriously in terms of fighting them, but we will never take them seriously metaphysically, is that they are not just evil, they're wrong. They are wrong. So let me quote from Atlas Shrugged. In the name of the best within you, do not sacrifice this world to those who are its worst. In the name of the values that keep you alive, do not let your vision of man be distorted by the ugly, the cowardly, the mindless, and those who have never achieved his title. Do not lose your knowledge that man's proper estate is an upright posture, an intransigent mind, and a step that travels unlimited roads. Do not let your fire go out, spark by irreplaceable spark, in the hopeless swamps of the approximate, the not quite, the not yet, the not at all. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserved but have never been able to reach. Check your road and the nature of your battle. The world you desired can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It is yours. Unquote. I think we'll just leave you with that tonight. Thank you for joining us. This has been 5 minutes or so with Robert and Amy Nasir and you, and we are glad that you have joined us. Next week, I'm sure we will be talking less about politics and the state of the world, but there will be some of that. That's why I like having that little Robert and Amy address the news section that is supposed to be very short and a little bit cute. I don't think we were very cute tonight. Yeah. But all of you made it cute, made it fun, made it... I almost hate to use the word because so many people use this as an excuse for all of that dark humor and all of that stuff, but you have made it, and it's been a bit cathartic. It's been useful. Yes. It's been helpful, and sorry, but I needed that.
Yes, I did too. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
So with all that in mind, we wish you, as always, all of the success that you so richly deserve. We know that you do. We know some of you. We know many of you personally. And if you're watching a show like this, you are not one of today's ne'er-do-wells. You wouldn't get through 5 minutes, much less however many minutes it's been, if you were. And that is why we wish you success. We wish you flourishing. We wish you all sorts of good things. And we wish you love.